Next up is Hunter Lovins of Natural Capitalism Solutions. Hunter has been a longtime AREDAY alum and spoke at many AREDAYs, so I'm sure you're going to really enjoy her keynote. She is the president and founder of Natural Capitalism Solutions, which educates senior decision makers in business, government, and civil society to restore and enhance natural and human capital. So we're going to keep focusing on financial solutions, and I'd like you all to welcome Hunter Lovins to the stage now. Thank you.
So much for being here. AREDAY has been one of the seminal gatherings of people who care about these issues. I wasn't even supposed to be here. I'm actually taking Sylvia Earle's place, which is a huge honor. Turned out I could be here, and Chip, thank you. I'm not going to slather you with facts and figures. You've had enough. I'm going to tell you a couple stories. One, we're winning. We're in a horse race with catastrophe, no doubt, and we're winning. Last year, for the first time ever, $1 trillion went into climate solutions, investing in companies. McKinsey, I think, has it wrong on that. It's a lot bigger than anybody thought. Dr. Mark Jacobson of Stanford, whose numbers I rely on more than almost anybody else, says that we can have an entirely renewable world, and we can do it by 2035. Something like 145 countries that he has studied can be renewable by 2035. If we invest $62 trillion, that's a large number. And it pays back in 6 years. This is an investment. When Nick Stern came out with his Stern report saying that if we don't address climate change, it will cost the Earth 20% of GDP. And if we deal with climate change, it'll cost us 2% of GDP, so a better use of money. It's an investment. It's not a cost. For the first time in this country since the 30s, Doug was great on giving us the environmental history. FDR put in place an industrial policy. I know a lot of us hate Joe Biden for whatever reason. Yeah, Willow sucked. Yeah, what he's doing in the Gulf sucks. We now have an industrial policy between the CHIPS Act, the Infrastructure Act, the IRA. So Credit Suisse, when there was a Credit Suisse, said that by 2025, solar will be at 1 cent per kilowatt hour because of the IRA. Solar is now cheaper everywhere on Earth than any of the fossils, to the point that folk are projecting that this year we will see a collapse of fossil infrastructure, particularly in Europe, where they have been a bit more serious about having an industrial policy. This stuff is happening at warp speed. My heroes, Dana Meadows, author of Limits to Growth. Any of you remember the old book, Limits to Growth? Dana wrote it. Dana died before we began to see this transition. Ray Anderson of Interface died before we began to see this transition. David Brower, Randy Hayes and I are both alums of Dave Brower University, died before we began to see this transition. We're seeing the transition, and it's breaking out everywhere. The work that Bill Ritter did when he was in the governor's office, now being followed up by Jared Polis. Heidi Van Gendren's here. She was in the energy office. Colorado is one of the leaders in this, and we can continue to do this. Global fossil emissions are now projected to peak by 2025. We're winning. We're winning because of what all of you are doing. And we can all do so much better. The best way to eliminate the use of oil, by the way, fossil is subsidized to the tune of $7 trillion every year. That's your and my tax dollars around the world. $7 trillion, that's $13 million a minute. Sometimes when I have time in a speech, I'll just pause for a minute. Right, that was $13 million. And renewables are cheaper everywhere. So what's one thing we can do? Get rid of perverse subsidies. The best way to eliminate the use of oil is to drive an electric vehicle. And electric vehicles have been coming on at incredible speed. 54% increase over 2021 in sales of electric vehicles. Nissan just announced that by 2030, they will only sell electric vehicles in Europe. Something like 50% or more of new car purchases in Norway are electric vehicles. Why? Because they get a little sticker that allows them to use the high occupancy vehicle lane. So everybody buys them, and they have charging stations all over. The new Porsche battery, 800 miles of range. Yeah, wow, that's far better than an F-250 pickup truck. Oh yeah, and Ford is electrifying their pickup trucks. If we eliminate fossil emissions, that's half the solution to the climate crisis. And it's happening. The other half of the solution to the climate crisis is regenerative agriculture. Yes. We know how, Graciela, I'm sorry, your mechanical capture of carbon is not cost effective. What is cost effective is grass and grazing animals. If we did holistic grazing on all the world's grasslands, no, not cutting down any rainforest, just the existing grasslands, 60 years to 100 years, we're back to 300 parts per million concentration of CO2 in the atmosphere, and doing this is profitable. Vikram, why is investing in land one of your quick payback, quick exit strategies? Because this stuff is more profitable. How do we make it happen? Pay farmers to be climate heroes. So there's a marvelous project in the Egyptian, marvelous project in the Egyptian desert, SEKEM, S-E-K-E-M, look it up, Economy of Love. They worked with 2,000 smallholder farmers and paid them in carbon credits to switch from diesel generating sets to solar, to use regenerative agriculture, and to plant trees. Want to offset your carbon? This is my favorite carbon offset in all the world. SEKEM, S-E-K-E-M. They are now, we did some work with them at the last COP, Conference of Parties, the big UN circus in the desert. This year is going to be a complete Disneyland in the desert at Dubai, headed up by the head of the Abu Dhabi National Oil Company. Don't have high hopes. We've had 28 COPs and 28 failures, with arguably the one exception of Christiana Figueres in Paris. This one will fail, quite predictably. But at that COP, we put SEKEM together with the World Food Program and expanded SEKEM's program to 40,000 smallholder farmers. This stuff is happening. In India, Vijay Kumar is working so far with 850,000 smallholder farmers, enabling them to double profitability, triple productivity, using 9 principles. 5 he took from the North Dakota farmer Gabe Brown. Many of you have probably heard of Gabe. Took Gabe's 5 principles of minimal disturbance to the soil, cover, biomass cover on the soil year-round, living root in the soil year-round, diversity of crops, and animal impact. Added 4 more that were unique to India, so indigenous seed only, using cow manure and compost to build a fertilizer, using a slightly different chemistry to make a mycorrhizal inoculant. They coat the seeds so that when they go into the ground, it jump-starts the fungi. It's the fungi which mineralizes the carbon in the ground. And no poisons, totally organic, no artificial fertilizer, pesticide, herbicide, fungicide. As a result, farmer health is coming up enormously. Farm productivity, when you put carbon in the soil, you have greater water holding capacity. Every 1% increase in soil organic matter is 5 to 10 tons of carbon and 20,000 gallons of water holding capacity. With more water in the soil, they can plant 3 crops a year, 3 harvests a year, food year-round. They're not dependent on the monsoon. We're now taking VJ to Sri Lanka, where the government fell because to try to keep capital in the country, they said farmers can't buy artificial fertilizer. Farm productivity fell and the government fell. VJ has the answer to that. And bringing VJ to Brazil, putting VJ together with Million Belay out of Africa, who he calls it agroecology. I don't care what you call it a banana. This stuff works. And again, when you do regenerative agriculture, you take carbon out of the air and put it into the soil. Put those two together, we can solve the climate crisis. I mentioned limits to growth. This book, Earth for All, was just released last year by the Club of Rome, same outfit that released Limits to Growth, written by one of the co-authors of Limits to Growth, Jorn Randers. Jorn for years has been saying there's no hope. There's no hope. And a bunch of us said, Jorn, look at the technologies, look at regenerative agriculture, look at all this stuff. So Jorn and Per Espen Stoknes, who was here at AREI-AREDAY, I think 3 years ago, sat down, ran the same projections as Limits to Growth through, back then it was World 3, now it's World 4, big computer model. 5 turnarounds. The subtitle is A Survival Guide for Humanity. And what they found is there is enough time and we know what to do. We know what to do. So what can you do? This is, I think, the most important bit of all. You are not the problem. There are 100 entities that are responsible for 70% of carbon emissions over all time. You're not the problem, but you are the solution. 7 things. Embrace reality. Learn the science. The climate crisis is real. John Powers is right. This isn't climate change. This is climate crisis. It is existential. If we don't solve it, well, George Carlin said, save the earth will be fine. It'll shake us off like a bad case of fleas. What we're talking about is save the humans. Face the pain with courage. Yes, we are losing a lot, and we can save a great deal. Learn to bend, not break. Be resilient. The earth has amazing regenerative capacities. Become like the earth. Care for you. It's the old firefighters' creed. I was a firefighter for many years in the Roaring Fork Valley. If you go down, not only do you take you out of the fight, you take down the people who have to care for you. Learn what you have to keep going. Find your voice. Studies show that north of 80% of people know that the climate crisis is real, believe it will hurt them personally, and way fewer than 50% think anybody else feels the same way. We all feel alone. We say, but what can I do? I'm just one person. Said 8 billion people. I had hoped today to be able to publicly announce, but I'll hint. I've been asked by a very senior UN official to help him build a global climate movement. So Sally and Doug, it's coming. We're doing it. Join us every day. Ask yourself, what's my dot? Do one thing. Every day, what is your one thing? Move your money. Andy Behar, Tom Van Dyke laid out, you will make more money if you put your money into these kinds of technologies. And with that, I'm exactly out of time. Thank you all very much. If you all want, I've got a few copies of my book, A Finer Future, that I'll be happy to sell to you. And Chip, thanks.